You think you've moved on, that it doesn't matter anymore. But inside there's an echo, almost imperceptible, that insists on returning. It's as if something has been suspended in time, waiting for just the right moment to be acknowledged. It wasn't just a call, it was a sign. It was a gap between what you thought was over and what still needed to be revealed. He didn't realize it at the time. He was too busy, perhaps distracted, maybe trying to quiet his own mind. Yet even days later, the memory of that call kept coming back. Not because of the number itself, but because of the feeling, because of the inexplicable certainty that something was there, an invisible thread that hadn't snapped. Have you ever felt this? An impression that refuses to fade, as if life wants to hand you a key but you're still too afraid to turn the lock. Perhaps that call was exactly that, a disguised answer, a reminder that time doesn't erase what needs to be lived. The curious thing is that life always finds ways to provoke this awareness. A recurring dream, a name that keeps coming up, a trivial detail that makes your heart race for no apparent reason. All of this is part of the same language, silent and profound. And the more he tries to ignore it, the more noticeable it becomes. There's something that hasn't been lost, something that hasn't been forgotten, something that insists on crossing weeks, days, the noise. If you've experienced this, comment. I needed to hear this. The mind tries to rationalize. It says it's just a coincidence, that missed calls happen every day and there's nothing special about it. But the heart doesn't accept that so easily. It holds on to a subtle memory, a perception that can't be explained by logic. Why that particular call? Why at that very moment when he was thinking about giving up? Perhaps life used a simple detail to interrupt the flow of disbelief, to show that not everything is under human control, that there are larger movements happening behind the scenes. And what if that missed call was a bridge, an invitation to look beyond the surface? You know how it is. Sometimes it only takes a tiny sign to dismantle all certainties. Just a touch, a pause, a detail, for everything inside you to reorganize. What seemed definitive is no longer so solid. What seemed closed off begins to move again. It's at this point that perception expands, because he starts to notice that nothing happens by chance, that even silence has a voice, that even absence can be disguised presence, and that perhaps that call wasn't meant to be answered at all, but only to awaken. When you look at it from this angle, you realize that destiny doesn't act in haste. It acts with precision. It waits for the right moment, even if it takes weeks, months, or years. Because what is true doesn't dissolve over time. It simply remains on hold, like a number that stays saved, even when there's no immediate return. Have you ever experienced something similar? Share in the comments. He tries to forget. He pretends he doesn't think about it anymore. He fills his days with tasks, floods his mind with artificial noise, seeks distractions to keep him away from the memory. But just a moment of silence is enough for everything to come rushing back. The heart doesn't negotiate. It simply shows. And what it shows is simple. That missed call is a metaphor for something greater. It's life knocking on the door, even when you're not ready to answer. It's proof that there is an answer waiting for the moment when courage aligns with need. Notice, life never fails to deliver what is yours. It just uses unexpected paths. And the more he resists, the clearer the evidence becomes that running away is futile. Perception matures slowly. First, as discomfort, then as nostalgia. Next, it transforms into certainty, until it finally becomes inevitable. And it is at this point that he understands. It wasn't just about answering a call, it was about answering himself. Have you ever noticed how certain memories keep coming back, not because you enjoy recalling them, but because there's something in them that has yet to be experienced? That's the real call, not the number on the screen, but the truth hidden behind it. And as long as he doesn't respond to that inner call, life will continue to send signals. Small, persistent, almost invisible, but impossible to ignore. Silence carries answers that words cannot translate. The missed call transforms into a symbol of everything that remains unresolved. It's not about the time that has passed, but about the intensity that lingers. Have you noticed that some memories never age? They don't follow the calendar. They remain untouched, as if they are always waiting for the moment you finally have the courage to face them. He feels this, a light yet constant weight, like a presence in the background that doesn't fade away. It is at this moment that perception becomes profound. He understands that life speaks in codes. It uses subtle signs to reveal truths that couldn't be disclosed otherwise. And that missed call is exactly that. A code. A reminder that there is still something to be lived, understood, resolved. If you've made it this far and something inside you has stirred, write yes in the comments. He looks back and realizes they weren't just missed calls, they were missed opportunities. Small moments when life reached out, but he was too busy to notice. And when the memory returns, it doesn't come to hurt, it comes to awaken. That specific call weeks ago still resonates as if it happened today, not because of the content, but because of the silence it left behind. Deep down, he knows that some silences speak more than words. How many times have you felt this? A void that doesn't hurt but is unsettling. An absence that doesn't make sense but insists on being felt. He began to realize that life doesn't provide ready-made answers. It merely plants signs along the way. It's up to you to have the courage to pause, look, and acknowledge. The missed call is one of those signs. A reminder that there is something waiting to be lived, something that hasn't been erased by time. The heart knows this even before the mind accepts it. It holds memories like seeds, ready to sprout when the season arrives. Perhaps that call was just that, an announcement that winter was coming to an end. And even though he didn't answer, life didn't give up. It keeps trying, it continues to whisper details, it keeps sending perceptions disguised as simple events. If you've ever felt that something forgotten came knocking at your door again, say, I have indeed. What's curious is how destiny acts without haste. It doesn't need shortcuts because it knows that time doesn't destroy what is true, it only prepares. And it was in that silence that he began to realize. Each thought that arose seemed not merely like a memory but a summons, a reminder calling him to look again. But with different, more mature and more aware eyes, he started to notice the recurring dreams that brought the same face, the places where the name reappeared, the moments when the heart raced for no apparent reason. None of this was coincidence, it was language. It was life trying to translate itself. And amid all of this, the missed call transformed into a symbol. It was no longer just an entry in the call log. It was a mark, a warning, a reminder that there are answers still waiting. The perception grew like a slow fire. At first, it was uncomfortable. Then it turned into longing. And now it is certainty. You know how it is when something keeps coming back. It may take days, months, or even years, but when it returns loaded with purpose, and he begins to feel, perhaps this answer wasn't on the other end of the line, but within himself. Life has curious ways of pushing us toward what we need to experience. Sometimes it uses an unexpected encounter, other times it uses a painful loss. And in moments like this, all it takes is a missed call. He didn't realize it at the moment, but now he understands. It wasn't coincidence. It was a reminder. It was insistence. It was destiny saying, it's not over. Time tries to convince us otherwise. The mind tries to deceive, but the heart does not negotiate. The heart simply shows, and what it shows is inevitable. Have you ever noticed how some memories don't fade? On the contrary, the more time passes, the stronger they become. This doesn't happen with everything. It only happens with what has deep roots. It only happens with what was born true. And that's why that call lingered, because there was a root, because there was something too alive to be buried by silence. The perception is clear now. It's not about what he lost, but about what still awaits him. The most curious thing is that he had already tried to convince himself it didn't matter, that all of it was part of the past. But inside him, something kept calling. And that call won't be silenced by distractions. It won't be erased by new stories. It won't dissolve with new noises. Some things remain. Not because you insist, but because life insists. And he began to notice the signs more clearly. The days when, for no reason, that memory would surface in the middle of another conversation. The nights when, suddenly, a detail would return with force. The moments when a simple touch seemed to carry more than could be explained. The perception was no longer subtle. It was evident. It was inevitable. The missed call has become a symbol of what life still wanted to reveal. And there was no escaping it. If this resonates with you so far, write a word that defines how you're feeling right now. He takes a deep breath and realizes, it's not about answering a call, it's about answering to himself. How many times have you forgotten about yourself? Racing after deadlines, trying to meet expectations, silencing your own truth to fit into spaces that were never yours. The missed call screams exactly that. It screams that you can no longer betray yourself, It screams that what was left on hold is not about the other person, but about what was born within you. He starts to revisit moments. He recalls the times when life showed him signs that he ignored. He thinks back on the choices he made to avoid feeling. He remembers the shortcuts he took to avoid confronting. But now, there's no way to escape, because everything he denied is still there, intact, waiting for the courage to be lived. And the most painful thing isn't what he lost, but what he postponed. Because life always brings back what is necessary. It always finds ways to knock on the door again. It always insists until you notice. That call was an echo, a reminder that the answer he sought so desperately was not outside. It was within him. It always has been. Have you ever realized that sometimes what hurts the most isn't the absence of someone, but the absence of yourself? The heart matures before the mind accepts. It knows when something isn't finished. It feels when there's still an invisible thread holding together what seemed to be concluded. And no matter how much he tries to rationalize, he can't deny it. And it is at this point that realization becomes inevitable. It wasn't by chance, it wasn't coincidence. It was destiny insisting. The missed call has transformed into a metaphor. It's not about who called, it's about the call he himself needs to answer. He begins to understand that life isn't just a series of facts, but rather a matter of interpretations. What seemed trivial can hold revelations. What appeared to be silence may contain answers. What seemed to be forgetfulness might just be preparation. And when he accepts this, something inside him aligns, as if finally his internal clock has found the right rhythm. Have you ever experienced that moment when everything falls into place, even without an explanation? That instant when perception opens up and you realize that nothing was in vain. If this has happened to you, comment, "I needed to hear this." The silence of the missed call echoes like an invitation. He realizes that life speaks in layers. The surface only shows the unanswered number, but the depth reveals a universe of meanings. Every sign that repeats, every memory that returns, every detail that insists on showing up carries the same message: awaken. And he understands. He understands that it's not about what's outside. It's about what's moving inside. It's in this instant that life reveals itself, not in grand gestures, but in subtleties, in the number that appears on the screen, in the silence that lingers afterward, in the awareness that grows with each memory. And when he finally accepts, he also realizes that there are no definitive losses. There are only processes. There are only weights. There are only truths that haven't yet reached their time to bloom. This call was not a mistake, it was a sign. It was insistence. It was love disguised as absence. Now he no longer sees it as mere coincidence. He understands. It was life testing his listening. It was fate asking if he was ready to perceive what he hadn't seen before. And this realization changes everything. Because it no longer matters whether the call was answered or not. What matters is what it awakened. He begins to realize that life is filled with calls like this. Some he answers, others he ignores, but all leave marks. And each mark is an invitation for the next step. Have you thought about this? How many calls has life made to you that you didn't notice? How many signs have you overlooked, thinking they were just coincidences? When he looks back, he realizes he hasn't lost anything. Everything was just waiting for the right moment to be seen. And the right moment is now. He becomes aware of something profound. Life never forgets what is true. You can distance yourself, pretend you don't feel, make excuses to move on, but what has taken root remains alive. The missed call was just the simplest way fate found to remind him of this. In that instant, perception expands even further. He understands that it's not about going back to the past, but about honoring what remains within oneself. Because some memories aren't prisons, they are compasses. They point to where the soul truly wants to go, even if the mind tries to deny it. He begins to sense that this call carries a question. Are you ready to answer what has always been yours? It's not easy to face. Attending to oneself requires courage. It demands shedding masks, renouncing the comfort of escape, and making space for vulnerability. But it is precisely there that life is reborn. What once seemed like just a number on the screen now reveals itself as a silent reminder that nothing real is ever lost. Everything returns. Everything finds its path. Everything insists until it is recognized. And when he realizes this, he no longer feels absence. He feels presence. a presence that has always existed, just waiting for the moment to be seen. If this text resonated with you, drop a heart down below. This was just the beginning. In the next video, the truth you've been waiting for will be revealed. Click here and continue on this journey with me.